Today, we are reading Spooky Campfire Stories, compiled by Kelley, Hoitsma. So if you guys would go ahead and grab your books, we will go ahead and read The Severed Hand. Written by Janice Del Negro. If you'll go ahead, like, subscribe, and share, turn down the lights, and let's see if we can get this story going. Fair Mary was merry. Fair Mary was kind. She had more brothers than you can count on one hand, for she had 7. Her brothers had raised her from a babe, for their parents had died when she was very young. A fine job they'd done of it, too, for there were many young men who wanted to marry Mary. The blacksmith's son, the minister's nephew, the butcher's boy. They came courting every Sunday and sat in the parlor, trying their country best to charm her. But Mary was not interested in any of these young men. She had known them all her life, and if truth be told, they bored her to distraction. She longed to meet a man unlike any other she had met before, someone mysterious and exciting. And you know what they say, be careful what you wish for. One day, there came to town a man unlike any other Mary had ever met. He was tall and straight, with bright green eyes and shocking red hair. His clothes were elegant, his manner even more so. His name was Mr. Fox, and soon, very soon, he began courting Mary. He would come by on Sunday and sit in the parlor and tell her stories of his travels and of all the exotic places he had been, and the strange and unusual sights he had seen. It wasn't long before the other young men stopped coming, for it was clear Mary had made her choice. The engagement was soon announced to the jargon of the country suitors, and to the delight of the headstrong Mary. Now Mr. Fox spoke to Mary of his manor house on the other side of the woods, filled with the curious and beautiful things collected on his travels. "You must come and see the house, my Mary," he would say, "for soon you will be the mistress there." But although they spoke often of such a visit, somehow it was never arranged. One Saturday Mary was walking through the woods, and what with thinking of this and thinking of that, she wandered deeper into the woods than she ever had ventured before. The light was fading, but she was not frightened, not then. She knew that if she stayed on the path, it would curve back to meet the road, and she would easily find her way home. Daylight or no, so she continued on. Soon she came to the clearing, and on the edge of the clearing was a great house. She knew it was the home of Mr. Fox, for he had described it to her. Well then, this is good fortune, she thought. I will knock on the door, and Mr. Fox will give me something cool to drink, and perhaps a ride back to town. Across the fragrant meadow she went, and up the great front steps to the great front door. Raising her hand to knock, Mary looked up. Carved above the great front door were the words, "Be bold, be bold." She did not know what it meant. A family motto, thought Mary. I must gain its meaning from my Mr. Fox. Being bold enough, she knocked on the door. The sound of her knocking echoed inside the house, echoed on and back, but no one came. Now this is strange, Mary thought, for in a house this large there should be many servants. She knocked again, and again there was no answer, and thinking only to herself, "Oh, Mr. Fox, he would not mind." Mary turned the golden doorknob until the door opened smoothly beneath her hand. She stepped into a great hall that fairly took her breath. Beneath her feet was a marble floor, polished to mere brightness. Above her head was a crystal chandelier that glittered in the afternoon sun. And carving up to the second floor was a long stairway, wide and graceful. Mary looked at the elegant stairway and imagined herself sweeping down the stairs, her stairs, on the arm of Mr. Fox, her Mr. Fox, making a grand entrance into the grand hall, thinking only to herself, "Oh, Mr. Fox, he would not mind." Mary ran lightly up the stairs, intending only to sweep down them again. But at the top of the stairs there was another door, and carved above the door were the words, be bold, but not too bold." She opened the second door and stepped into the most richly appointed bedroom she had ever seen. The walls hung with tapestries embroidered in gold. The bed was carved with velvet. The floor with carpets in colors that glowed like fire. And across the room there was yet another door, a third door, a closet door. Now, closets in those days were not like closets today, but more like small rooms. A person could step inside them, the clothes hanging about the walls. Mary thought of the elegant clothes Mr. Fox always wore, never the same twice, since she had known him, and wondered if there was a room in that closet for her clothes. Thinking only to herself, "Oh, Mr. Fox, he would not mind," she crossed the room. Carved above the closet door were the words, be bold, but not too bold, lest your heart's blood run cold." Mary did not know what the words meant, but she did not let it stop her this time either. Mary opened the door and stepped inside. It took a few moments for her eyes to adjust to the darkness. When they had, she saw before her 3 great cauldrons, huge iron pots. She stepped up to the first and saw that it was full of human hair. Red, gold, black, and brown gleamed in the shadowy light. Her heart began to beat a little faster. Mary stepped to the second cauldron and saw that it was filled with human bones. She knew they were human bones. She could tell by the skulls gleaming there in the half-light, and her heart beat faster still. Mary stepped to the third cauldron and saw that it was full of some dark liquid. She dipped her fingertips into the liquid, smelled it, and knew that it was blood. Heart in her throat, Mary backed up against the closet wall. She thought she would be sick. Hands over her mouth to keep her from screaming, she ran from the closet, slamming the door behind her. Across the bedroom she ran, slamming that door behind her too. She started down the great carving stair, and that was when she saw him. Through the front door she saw him, Mr. Fox, coming across the meadow, dragging a young woman behind him. Mary was trapped there on the stairs. She could not go up. She could not go out. She ran down the long, curved stairway and hid in the shadows beneath it. The great front door flew open, and Mr. Fox entered, dragging the young woman across to the gleaming marble floor. He pulled her up the stairs. In the last desperate effort to save herself, the young woman reached out and grabbed hold of the banister, and Mr. Fox, without missing a beat, drew his sword and cut off her hand. The hand flew through the air and landed in Mary's lap, where she crouched hidden beneath the stair. She knew her life was forfeit if he discovered her. Mary heard the bedroom door open and close, then the closet door, then silence. She wrapped the severed hand in her apron and ran from Mr. Fox's lair. She ran across the meadow. She ran through the woods. She did not stop running until she reached the safety of her brother's house. The next day was Sunday, and as was his habit, Mr. Fox came to visit Mary. They sat in the parlor, Mary's back to the heavy drapes that shut out the wind and weather, and although Mr. Fox's stories were as witty as ever, she was strangely silent. Finally, Mr. Fox said to her, "Mary, my dear, what is it? You do not seem yourself today." And Mary replied, "Oh, Mr. Fox, last night I had a dream." "A dream?" said Mr. Fox. "I am very good at interpreting dreams. You tell me what you dreamt, and I will tell you what it meant." And so Mary began. "I dreamed I was walking through the woods, and I came to a great clearing. On the edge of the clearing was a great house, and carved above the great front door were the words, 'Be bold, be bold.' But it was not so," said Mr. Fox. "In my dream, sir, in my dream it was so. In my dream I opened the great front door and went into the great hall. Up a curving stair there was a second door, and carved above it were the words, 'Be bold, but not too bold.'" "But it was not so," said Mr. Fox, "and it is not so." "In my dream, sir, it was so. In my dream. In my dream I opened the second door, and across a rich bedroom was yet a third door. And carved above it were the words, 'Be bold, but not too bold, lest your heart's blood run cold.' I opened the third door, and within found 3 cauldrons, one full of human hair, one full of human bones, and one full of human blood. I ran from that room, sir, down the stair, and then I saw you, Mr. Fox. I saw you coming across the meadow, dragging a young woman by the hair. You pulled her up the stair, and when she reached out to save herself, you drew your sword and cut off her hand." Mr. Fox had gone very pale. "But it was not so," he cried, "and it is not so, and God forbid that it should be so." "Ah, but it was so, and it is so, and here is the hand to prove it so." And between them on the table she laid the severed hand. Mr. Fox stood so quickly his chair fell over behind him. His green eyes glittered in his pale, pale face, and his hand was on his sword. In a deadly whisper he said, "Ah, it was so, and it is so, but you are the only one who knows, and you will never tell." Mary stood and threw open the drapes behind her. Her 7 brothers fell on Mr. Fox, dragging him to the back of the house. They did to him there what he had done to so many others. Well, that was interesting. The severed hand. Ugh. You guys don't see anything out there, do you? Hopefully, you guys were able to like, subscribe, and share this video with others. And have this yourselves here a wonderfully spooky Halloween.